In general, Human Report shows about the top 10 most crowded cities in the world annually, and they usually exchange the ranks on an ongoing basis. But on the other hand, there are cities whose ranks have never changed for many years because the number of their population is always fixed at 0. Hello, here are Joe and Bro. We're introducing Wikiplanet. And today, we'll take you on a journey to Wiki Rarity Planet, where we present rare and unique stuff, such as today's episode, which is the biggest ghost towns in the world. But before we start, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and the bell down below so you don't miss any of our new videos.
The city of Craco in Italy. It is one of the most famous cities for filmmakers and photographers, and it is located in southern Italy near the Ionian Sea, which is a part of the Mediterranean. The entire city was built on a mountain slope. Some of its areas reach a height of up to 400 meters above sea level, and the city's location was one of the means for providing protection to the people, until inhabitants migrated completely in the middle of the 20th century. And the reason for providing protection to the residents was the same reason for turning it into a ghost town, because the city was greatly affected by landslide caused by natural conditions, and its presence in this way makes it as weak as it doesn't need a strong earthquake or volcano to be badly impacted. A series of storms and heavy rain were causing panic among the whole city. So in 1963, the decision was taken by the Italian government to evacuate the city completely, and they turned the whole city into a tourist attraction, provided that safety instructions are followed.
Thames City in China. The Chinese city of Shanghai is considered one of the largest cities in China in terms of population, and with the beginning of the 20th century, its population exceeds 20 million people. And in an attempt to relieve pressure on the city, the government thought of an innovative solution and started a propaganda campaign entitled "Soon visitors won't be able to differentiate between Europe and China." And the project was intended to establish 9 small cities near Shanghai that don't exceed a few kilometers in distance, and to build these 9 European-style cities with the same architecture and design. And the project took place initially with the city of Thames, which was planned to implement the style of the British Victorian. And to accomplish such a project, over $30 million were allocated over 3 years to import streetlights, telephone booths, and double-decker buses that resembled the English style, and shops with the same famous name that are well known in England. And they even established a church completely similar to Bristol churches in England. And indeed, the city started the selling of some housing units. But the problem was that there was no room for the middle class to live in such city, according to its high cost, and therefore most of the city's residents were wealthy Chinese, and they even used it as secondary housing. And the result was the city remained empty. And then this city represented the failure of the 9 cities project, and it remained on its own as an abandoned city.
Kennecott USA. This remote city located in the far north of Alaska. Its story began in 1900 when copper ore was discovered near the glacier bearing the same name as the city. It was a small camp for miners, but turned into a large camp and continued to grow rapidly, and tents were turned into buildings and services were provided. And during the period between 1911 to 1936, the city produced copper worth $3 billion at the current prices. But in 1938, the ore has run out, and there was no reason for people to live there anymore. And over time, it was completely abandoned and transformed into a tourist attraction and a large national park.
The village of Kayakoy in Turkey, consisting of 400 abandoned stone houses in southwestern Turkey. But before the migration of its people, the number was 10,000. But when the Greek-Turkish War broke out after the First World War, the number of the village began to decrease, and with the end of the war in 1923, More than 75% of the population had already immigrated. But with the 1957 earthquake of magnitude 7.1 was more than enough to convince the rest of its residents that the place is no longer suitable for life. Especially nothing was spared from the earthquake's devastation, but the Turkish government was able to retain some landmarks on the outskirts of the village and turn it into a tourist destination.
Kolmanskop Namibia. The same story of Kennecott was repeated 8 years later in Namib Desert, but this time something much more expensive than copper was discovered. In 1908, diamonds were discovered there, and by 1912, the workers turned the desert town into an integrated community, housing units, hospital, and banquet hall, and they established an ice factory that imported water from the farm by railway. And the production of this city was about 12% of the total diamond production in the whole world. But in the end, the situation of this city wasn't different from Kennecott, although it continued to the beginning of the 50s. And by 1956, the bustling city returned to its calm desert nature after the immigration of all the residents. And after 46 years of oblivion, the city was about to disappear under sand. But in 2002, the government of Namibia gave the city a kiss of life, turned it into a landmark to bring some money, even if it was much less than diamonds.
Oradour Sior Gelan in France. The French agricultural village witnessed one of the most violent massacres of the German army during the Second World War. The village was inhabited by a small number of people, estimated at hundreds, and the village was located in the area of German rule. And in one of the resistance operations, one of the German officers was killed, and in a retaliatory reaction, the forces entered and destroyed the village with genocide. And only a very small number survived, and during the Nuremberg trials in 1946, some of those responsible for the massacre were brought to trial, and the French Committee for National Liberation kept the village as it is, to be a memorial lineage for the victims, to be a symbol for the French struggle. If you make it till here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video if you like it, and comment down below what topic do you want us to talk about in the next episode. See ya.